Welcome everybody, Christian here. Today we are going to be going over SMART goals, what they are, how you can use them to better your life and crush through your goals. This is basically focusing on destruction and alchemy, the alchemic side of goal setting, which is the most, I would say, overlooked side. Typically when people set goals, they just set a goal and then they go for it, but they miss a lot of things through that process. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what's going on in the world, also with the statues and how that's relates to this. And if you're catching this on the replay, #replay, if you're catching it live, then if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those towards the end of this. And this is a process that we're using within the Quantum Shift program. So I wanted to kind of break it down for you. It's a new approach on goal setting. All right, so let's get into it. So before we start, I would like to preface with a really, really great quote. I wonder where my... Oh, there we go. See here. My sound just disappeared. Weird. Or my audio, or my music. That's okay. So, creation and destruction are one to the eyes who can see beauty. And this is from, looks like Savitri Devi. And I love this quote. It actually really, really covers what we're going to be talking about today. So before we do that, let's go ahead and have a look at what's happening in the world. All right, so you may have noticed that there has been a series of events that are taking place that signal out to the world change is on the horizon. And what I mean by that is the statues, people are pulling statues down. And this is a huge, huge, huge signal that the old ways are no longer serving the changes that are going to be coming in the future. Which means these old cultures, these old technologies, these old ways of being are no longer useful in the future, or what we're transitioning to. So statues are symbols of a specific way of being in a particular time and space. Cultural, religious, philosophical, spiritual, right? These are the different categories that they are in. These statues signify and hold energetic space for cultural values, religious values, philosophical values, and spiritual values. And what you're seeing right now is people are pulling these statues down because they are tired of the old ways. And this is a form of alchemy, which is very, very, very interesting. It's a signal of transformation. A signal of transformation is destruction of the ways that do not serve anymore, right? So this is the statues that are being pulled down. Now, whether you agree with this or not, it's not really the point. The point here is people are coming from whatever philosophy, whatever position that you hold. People are demonstrating that they no longer are accepting this way of being, if that makes sense. All right, let me make sure I'm getting sound. Hi, Trinity. Welcome. So think about that, and I want to apply this not only to what we're moving into with the future, the new way of being, but also in life in general. And basically what this means, what this translates to, is you cannot fill a cup that's already full. You have to empty or destroy an aspect of that cup in order to replace it with a new way of being. And that's actually the same thing that goes with goal setting. Is most people, what they tend to do is they tend to set a goal and then just go for that goal. but they're missing the underlying energy that could prevent them from actually hitting that goal. And so that's what we're going to be looking at with SMART goals. So, somebody's sharing a video with me. Give me 1 second. Okay, cool. Nothing important right now. All right. So, we are having a look, a new approach, a new spin on goal setting. And I'd like to pull up this quote to kind of demonstrate why. A problem cannot be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. Okay? So when people set goals, they set goals in the present moment, but the goal is usually in the future. Right? So they're setting it from a certain level of consciousness, but then they forget about the things that are happening and occurring throughout that process of achieving that goal. And a wonderful quote or a wonderful phrase, very powerful phrase that goes hand in hand with this is, the way that we do anything is the way that we do everything. So as we approach that goal, if there's blocks that would prevent us from achieving that goal, it would be very difficult for us to actually achieve that goal, if that makes sense. Nicolette, welcome. All right, so this is probably the most common demonstration of destructive and creative behavior into a result. Metamorphosis, right? The caterpillar goes into the cocoon, spends time in the cocoon essentially destroying the caterpillar's ways and becoming a beautiful butterfly. And we're going to take that principle and we're going to apply it to goal setting. Goal setting on beneath the surface on the energetic or quantum level, if that makes sense. All right, cool. So, I'm not a huge fan of Bill Cosby, but I thought this was a wonderful quote as I was looking for ways to demonstrate what we're doing with SMART goals. He says, is a glass half full or half empty? It depends on whether you're pouring or drinking. So, what if we took this concept and what if we addressed the processes? Most goal setting processes only address filling up the cup. So typically, when we set a goal, we're only focused on the creation side of that, of the way that we achieve that goal, so to speak, right? So we're only focusing our energy on about 50% of the way to actually achieve that goal, or maybe even less, and that is filling the cup. Okay? So, we are completely overlooking the blocks that can prevent achieving that goal, right? That's the other 50%. That would be what can sabotage the goal, right? And if you know energy, you know that you need to, there's a constant exchange of giving and receiving, right? In order to receive, one must give. In order to give, one must receive, right? These things are constantly happening. These are the laws of physics. And this is also the law of cause and effect. So, essentially, the process of goal setting is very, very flawed because it's only focused on, once again, filling up the cup, creating the actual goal, and not destroying the things in the way that would sabotage the goal. All right? So what if we destroyed the blocks and took the necessary steps to achieve the goal simultaneously? We are entering a whole new world of goal setting, especially when it comes to living the life that you want to live, achieving maybe financial freedom, helping other people, leveling up to the 2.0 version of you. This is a way to accelerate that process very, very fast by doing the destructive nature and the creative nature simultaneously. All right. So what exactly is SMART goals? How does this work? Well, we use this in our program, and I'm going to get to the first phase of setting a SMART goal. And it actually stems from Jordan Peterson. He's got a very, very powerful process that we've taken into consideration with SMART goals. And this is the first step of doing a SMART goal. It's essentially bringing awareness to the two things that are going to create or manifest that goal into this physical reality. And that is destroying the old, becoming aware of the old things that can sabotage the new, and creating the new simultaneously. Very, very, very fast, right? Accelerating this process. And so one thing that we do, we're going to get into the Jordan Peterson stuff, but let's move a little bit behind the scenes to the advanced stuff, what we do in the program. One thing that for sure can sabotage any goal is a block. This is going to sound pretty crazy, but a block in the future. Okay? So in other words, let me kind of translate this for you into 5th grade language so it's easy to understand. If somebody wants to achieve a goal, let's say that goal is to bring in $20K per month. But there's a belief system that says when they achieve that goal, it's not safe, or there's some kind of block in the way after they achieve that goal. It's going to be very difficult for them to achieve that goal. So one of the things that we do within Quantum Shift, within the program, is we actually test for those belief systems that could be preventing you from achieving those goals in the future. So a good one would be somebody wants to achieve a $20K per month goal consistently, want to bring in $20K per month. I ask, what's the first thing that you would do if you were to get that $20K? And they say, well, I would go and travel to Italy. And you say, okay, so let's test the belief systems around traveling to Italy. And if those belief systems would prevent you, if they would say, like, it's not safe to travel to Italy, I don't believe I can travel to Italy, it's not safe to fly on an airplane to Italy, yada yada, that goal will be difficult to achieve. And what we do within Quantum Shift is we actually clear those goals, or clear those beliefs, those blocks. And we actually manifest at the same time the $20K, and that opens up the energy. It essentially empties the cup and fills the cup at the same time, which will allow us to accelerate the process of creating that goal. Pretty fascinating stuff. All right, Nicola is watching. Welcome, Nicola. Thank you. Trinity, welcome. Cool. All right, so let's get into some of the, I call them the 5 belief-shaking principles about the destructive and the negative. So one of the most common flaws that we see within, like, manifesting or law of attraction type stuff is people resist the negative. So this is the same thing when it comes to goals, right? People are resisting the negative. They don't want to be a certain thing. A good thing with goal setting would be they don't want to become arrogant if they had a lot of money. So they wanted to manifest a lot of money. They want to bring in a lot of money, but then they have a belief system that says if they had a lot of money, they would be arrogant, and they don't want to be arrogant. So this is another way of actually blocking the goal. So think about when we go to the gym, right? We're going to the gym, we're using resistance, we're using weights to build strength. And most people, look at the people within the protests, They go to a protest for an action, like anti-racism, anti-whatever it may be, but they're actually fueling that thing that they don't want to bring into their life. They're giving energy to it. And Mother Teresa has a wonderful quote. It says, "Don't call me when you have a anti-war rally. Call me when you have a peace rally." And this is exactly that concept. So let's look at the 5 belief-shaking principles about destructive forces and the negative. The negative, number 1. The negative is a necessary part of the positive. Right? If the negative wasn't there, the positive could not exist. So, in order to bring in the new you, you must release the old. With this SMART goal technique, we're essentially doing that simultaneously at the same time. We're releasing the old and we're bringing in the new. The way that we do that, one of the ways, I should say, is accepting the negative. That's the first step to overcoming it. So dropping all resistance towards it. Dropping resistance towards that thing that you are fearful of, that you are having negative belief systems or negative patterns about. All right? Going back to kind of what we talked about a few minutes ago, destroying the old is a signal to creating the new. What that does is it opens up the energy. It signals to the universe, or whatever you want to call it, that you are ready for this new thing to come in. That you have accepted the old ways and that you're over them and you're ready to go from a caterpillar to a butterfly. By dropping all resistance and by crushing through all those blocks and allowing the energy to open. All right? One really, really powerful concept is every single situation has both the positive and the negative perspective happening simultaneously. And this is also a concept that we built on with the SMART goal protocol. Is these things are happening simultaneously. Let's not use them to bring us back down. Let's use them to accelerate us forward. Right? This is all determined by who? By you, the perceiver. Right? The perceiver, if you've ever seen the, I believe it's called the double slit experiment, where there's waves and particles going through 2 different things, and then they put a observer there, and it changes the dynamics of everything. That's this concept in action, proven by quantum physics. Okay? So, SMART goals. A more advanced quantum-style way of setting goals by using destructive forces of the universe, the destructive forces, accepting, dropping resistance to, breaking through limiting beliefs, all simultaneously as we manifest and create the goals that we want to achieve into this reality. What we are seeing with this right now, the results are astounding. Absolutely astounding. Crushing goals very, very rapidly. Income goals, sales goals, success goals, relationship goals, kind of all of the above. We're testing it in different areas, but we're seeing very, very great results, and we will be charting them and also having that data accessible for our own personal goals and anybody that wants to participate that's already in the program with that. Okay, so what I want to get into right now is the first step, the becoming aware of. This is called Clean Your Room, and it's an alchemy process that Jordan Peterson famously talks about. And this alone, this is one of the first steps that we take with SMART goals. But this process alone, becoming aware of the things that are blocking you and also the things that you want to achieve, by cleaning your room. Cleaning your room is essentially, Jordan Peterson's going to break it down for you guys. It's essentially just looking at and focusing on the things that you want to fix. And it's a very, very powerful process. So I'm going to go ahead and play that for you guys right now. Then we'll come back with a closing little segment.
So imagine you're dealing with someone who's hoarding. Now, people who are hoarding are often older or neurologically damaged, or they have obsessive compulsive disorder. But then you walk into their house and there's like 10,000 things in their house. There's maybe 100 boxes, and you open up a box, and in the box there's some pens and some old passports and some checks and their collection of silver dollars and some hypodermic needles and some dust and, you know, a dead mouse. And there's boxes and boxes and boxes like that in the house. It's absolute chaos in there. Absolute chaos, not order, chaos. And then you think, is that their house or is that their being? Is that their mind? And the answer is, there's no difference. There's no difference. So, you know, I could say, well, if you want to organize your psyche, you could start by organizing your room. If that would be easier, because maybe you're a more concrete person and you need something concrete to do. So you go clean up under your bed and you make your bed and you organize the papers on your desk, and you think, well, just exactly what are you organizing? Are you organizing the objective world, or are you organizing your field of being, like your field of total experience? And Jung believed that, and I think there's a Buddhist doctrine that's sort of nested in there, that at the highest level of psychological integration, there's no difference between you and what you experience. Now you think, well, I can't control everything I experience, but that's no objection, because you can't control yourself anyway. So the mere fact that you can't extend control over everything you experience is no argument against the idea that you should still treat that as an extension of yourself. Well, let's say you have a long-standing feud with your brother. Well, is that a psychological problem? Is that him? Is it a problem in the objective world, or is it a problem in your field of being? And it's very useful to think that way, because you might ask, what could you do to improve yourself? Well, let's step one step backwards. The first question might be, why should you even bother improving yourself? And I think the answer to that is something like, so you don't suffer any more stupidly than you have to. And maybe so others don't have to either. It's something like that. You know, like there's a real injunction at the bottom of it. It's not some casual self-help doctrine. It's that if you don't organize yourself properly, you'll pay for it, and in a big way, and so will the people around you. And you could say, well, I don't care about that, but that's actually not true. You actually do care about that, because if you're in pain, you will care about it. And so you do care about it, even if it's just that negative way. It's very rare that you can find someone who's in excruciating pain who would ever say, well, it would be no better if I was out of this. Sort of pain is one of those things that brings the idea that it would be better if it didn't exist along with it. It's incontrovertible. So you get your act together so that there isn't any more stupid pain around you than necessary. Well, so then the question might be, well, how would you go about getting your act together? And the answer to that, and this is a phenomenological idea too, it's something like, look around for something that bothers you and see if you can fix it. You can do this in a room. It's quite fun to do it just when you're sitting in a room, like a room, maybe your bedroom. You can sit there and just sort of meditate on it and think, okay, if I wanted to spend 10 minutes making this room better, what would I have to do? And you have to ask yourself that, right? It's not a command, it's like a genuine question. And things will pop out in the room that you know, like there's a stack of papers over there that's kind of bugging you, and you know that maybe little order there would be a good thing, and you know you haven't, there's some rubbish behind your computer monitor that you haven't attended to for like 6 months, and the room would be slightly better if it was a little less dusty and the cables weren't all tangled up the same way. And if you allow yourself just to consider the expanse in which you exist at that moment, there'll be all sorts of things that'll pop out in it that you could just fix. And, you know, I might say, well, if you were coming to see me for psychotherapy, this easiest thing for us to do first would just be to get you to organize your room. You think, well, is that psychotherapy? And the answer is, well, it depends on how you conceive the limits of your being. And I would say, start where you can start. You know, if something announces itself to you, which is a strange way of thinking about it, as in need of repair, that you could repair, then, hey, fix it. You fix 100 things like that, your life will be a lot different. You know, I often tell people too, fix the things you repeat every day, because people tend to think of those as trivial, right? You get up, you brush your teeth, you have your breakfast, you know, you have your routines that you go through every day. Well, those probably constitute 50% of your life. And people think, well, they're mundane, I don't need to pay attention to them. It's like, no, that's exactly wrong. The things you do every day, those are the most important things you do. Hands down. All you have to do is do the arithmetic. You figure it out right away. So 100 adjustments to your broader domain of being, and there's a lot less rubbish around and a lot fewer traps for you to step into. And so once you've got your mind and your emotions together, and once you're acting that out, then you can extend what you're willing to consider yourself and start fixing up the things that are part of your broader extent. It's a very interesting thing to do. I like the idea of the room, because you can do that at the drop of a hat. You know, you go back to where you live and sit down and think, okay, I'm going to make this place better for half an hour. What should I do? And you have to ask, and things will just pop up like mad. And it's partly because your mind is a very strange thing. As soon as you give it an aim, a genuine aim, it'll reconfigure the world in keeping with that aim. That's actually how you see to begin with. And so if you set it a task, especially, you have to be genuine about it, which is why you have to bring your thoughts and emotions together, and then you have to get them in your body so you're acting consistently. You have to be genuine about the aim, but once you aim, the world will reconfigure itself around that aim, which is very strange. And it's technically true. You know, the best example of that, you have all seen this video where you watch the basketballs being tossed back and forth between members of the white team versus the black team, and while you're doing that, a gorilla walks up into the middle of the video and you don't see it. It's like, you know, if you thought about that experiment for about 5 years, that would be about the right amount of time to spend thinking about it. Because what it shows you is that you see what you aim at. And that, man, if you can get one thing through your head as a consequence of even being in university, that would be a good one. You see what you aim at. And so, because one inference you might draw from that is, be careful what you aim at, right? What you aim at determines the way the world manifests itself to you. And so if the world is manifesting itself in a very negative way, one thing to ask is, are you aiming at the right thing? Now, you know, I'm not trying to reduce everybody's problems to an improper aim. People get cut off at the knees for all sorts of reasons. You know, they get sick, they have accidents. There's a random element to being, that's for sure. And so you don't want to take anything, even that particular phrase, too far. You want to bind it with the fact that random things do happen to people, but it's still a great thing to ask.